Breaking up seems to be this combination. When you break up, you'll feel sad, right? When you break up, your wealth line will be hurt, your fate line will be hurt, and your emotions will be hurt. So for a breakup to happen, there need to be at least 2 or more killing intentions involved. If there aren't that many killing intentions, and it's just a dissolving agent, then the breakup won't actually happen. There will just be signs of it. Everyone needs to distinguish between these two situations. We often encounter clients who come to ask a question, which is, "Teacher, will I have a long-distance relationship?" There are also those who say, "Teacher, my boyfriend is abroad. Should I continue with him or not?" Or they ask, "Will there come a day when he moves far away overseas?" And then there's another situation, just like the song at the beginning of this video, "Dear, you're not by my side, even though we're both actually in Taiwan." But he's often not around. This song, if I remember correctly, was originally written to describe the feelings of a flight attendant because she often has to fly abroad. And so her boyfriend can't be there to accompany her. So all she can do is, in foreign ports, she misses her lover. In fact, the situations we've just talked about are actually quite similar. That is to say, whether it's a real long-distance relationship, like you happened to meet him while backpacking in the US and you both felt a strong connection, but in the end, you still have to return to Taiwan, or you were both in Taiwan and then he got assigned to work abroad, or because of your job, you have to travel all the time. When you don't spend much time together, all these situations are considered long-distance relationships. In traditional fate readings, distance is often mentioned, like whether I will marry someone from another country, but actually we often tell people that marrying abroad is a paradox, because how do you even define abroad? Not to mention in ancient times, the concept of country was very vague. Back then it was more about territories. For example, when we were studying the territory of the Tang dynasty, if you have even a little bit of historical knowledge, you'd know that the way it was drawn when we were kids, if you look at those maps, they draw a huge area. Sometimes it even stretches to Central Asia. But in reality, those weren't territories directly Tang governed. When I say directly governed, I mean they didn't send officials to manage and tax. Instead, they merely held influence in those regions. Now, as we know, the concept of national borders as we understand them today only really started to take shape after World War I. For example, when we talk about Vietnam during the Qin dynasty, if you were in the northern part of Vietnam, you were considered part of the country. But if you look at the southern Song dynasty, anything north of the Yangtze River was already considered another country. So basically, we don't really use today's concept of borders to look at those times. We wouldn't use arguments like marrying abroad, but rather talk about marrying far away, or discuss the idea of long-distance relationships. So how do we look at this on a natal chart? On a natal chart, there are a few combinations to consider. Which combinations represent change and which ones indicate being farther away? On the natal chart, there are the 4 corners, the hidden positions, and the 4 harm positions. What are these 4 corners called? Generally, they refer to areas that tend to have more changes. Next, when positions are directly opposing each other in the chart, or when the Chou and Wei positions are in direct opposition, these 2 combinations also represent change. So when we talk about change, basically we're looking at whether I might have a romance from afar. Actually, there's a very fundamental condition here. I often tell clients who ask whether they'll have a long-distance romance that the first thing you need to ask yourself is whether you're willing to accept a long-distance relationship. Some people just feel that a romance over such a distance is too much. They can't even look after the guy, have no idea what he's doing, and just don't want it. Even if the opportunity arises, they would reject it or at least hesitate. So the first requirement is that you accept this possibility. We often say that in a natal chart, many things depend on the choices we make and how we decide to act. But people tend to think of it as something that just happens to them, when in fact, in most cases, it's you who decides whether it happens or not. So whether or not you'll have a long-distance romance really depends on whether you're open to it. When you accept this possibility, then opportunities like this will arise for you. So as I mentioned earlier, those 6 combinations in the 4 horse positions, and then the ones with the Ji-Liang and the Sun-Moon combinations. So with this combination, if your luck cycle, destiny sign, or secondary star happens to fall into the destiny sign, it means you have the chance to go out, to move far away, and only then do you have the opportunity to meet new people, right? Otherwise, if you're always in Taipei, how would you do it? Some people ask, what about online relationships, teacher? Here, we're talking more about real-life situations. Even if I meet an American through online dating, I would still have to meet them in person, and I'd have to be willing to travel that far. So if your destiny sign is on this line, then the first requirement for love to happen is that I have the opportunity, I have the chance. This is what we call a phenomenon. So if in your luck cycle chart, whichever annual destiny sign steps on this line, and at the same time there is a joyful star, and at the same time the one below is mine, the major spouse palace or the natal spouse palace. In other words, the emotional traits I am involved with, as well as the emotional traits that dominate this decade for me, influence and lead my romantic prospects this year. Then, if I am also willing to step out and I have the opportunity for romance, well, of course, I would have the chance for a long distance or cross-cultural relationship. Now, why am I explaining this part? Actually, it's because, as we just mentioned, the second situation is that I already have a boyfriend. But now he has been assigned to work abroad. So in this situation, it turns out that I wasn't originally in any of those combinations I just mentioned. Maybe I was originally in the Mao or Yu position, or maybe I was in the 15th position with my assistant or main line over there, especially the assistant. But after the luck line changed this year, well, my annual spouse palace moved from the Zai or Wu position into this Changshu position. And the Changshu position happens to have 2 check marks, which means that originally everything was fine. But after the year changed, my relationship suddenly experienced a shift. So it's possible that originally, for example, my partner was doing just fine here, but next year he gets assigned to work in another country, and then we end up in a long-distance relationship. So this fits the second scenario. The third situation is when, due to work, there are all sorts of changes. This is actually similar to the second scenario, because once this phase starts, your relationship will keep experiencing changes, and there will be many situations where things are in flux. This means your partner is not often by your side. So those points I just mentioned all indicate that your significant other won't be with you long term. Of course, this idea applies in many areas, not just with partners, but also with children, parents, and so on. It's the same principle. So your loved one isn't necessarily your romantic partner. It could be your child. When you encounter this kind of change, it means that person won't be able to be with you often. For those who have attended our classes or regularly listen to my channel, you might be thinking, but teacher, isn't this the combination for a breakup? When you break up, you feel heartbroken, right? If you break up, your wealth line will be affected, your lifeline will be affected, and your relationship will be hurt as well. A breakup also requires the presence of 2 or more killing stars in the chart. If there aren't that many, if there's just one artistic mark, a scattered star, or a spinning top, then it won't necessarily lead to a breakup. It just shows signs of it. So you need to distinguish between these 2 situations. You might ask, teacher, doesn't that make it easy? Yes, long-distance relationships are indeed more prone to breakups. So when your loved one isn't by your side, you really need to take good care of them, especially in times of such change in the chart. Otherwise, they might just leave. All right, thank you everyone. I hope you can all hold on to the people by your side.